I can help people by what I went through in life itself. And I went out to, I mean, it was intentional to make this book about how can these stories resonate and help people. And, you know, it wasn't like, hey, let me kiss my own ass. So that's why I had to go there and do that. So it was I'm not a war hero, man. Like, you know, there's a lot of heroes out there, and I don't have a great story to tell you about war. So being the only, and I actually talked about with Adam, I came up with the only. There's a lot of onlys out there. I was the only black in a lot of situations. And the only isn't about a color. There's a lot of, you know, there's gays, there's lesbians, there's people who are white people who just feel like they're not wanted in society. That's the only. The only is feeling like you're not accepted in any society that you're in. It doesn't matter what color, creed, race, gender, it doesn't matter. It's just that you are in this situation where you feel like you're being judged. You might be being judged. You feel awkward. It's an awkward feeling when you walk in a room and you're like, oh my God, like I'm the only. And that comes with a lot of people. And that's where the only really came from, because I didn't want to make it like a black situation. I want this is about people. You are your own hero. You are the hero of this book. So I want it to be, what's a word that can make people feel like this resonates with me? That's only. You know, it's not about, it was about black or about white or about being Jewish or Christian or whatever. So that's where it comes from, man. It's about ownership of, a lot of people feel like no one understands what the fuck I'm going through right now. And that's the only. Well, like I've said a million times before, the most important conversation is the one you have with yourself. You wake up with it, you walk around with it, you go to bed with it. Eventually, you act on it. Sometimes you act on it good, sometimes bad. You got to change the internal dialogue. That person in your head that's talking that shit to you, until you change the internal dialogue in your head, until you callous over the victim's mentality that the world is out to get you because of you are the only, you got to change that shit, man.
Yeah, but you don't understand my life, David.
Yeah, I do. So that's the thing about it. And that's why I can talk about it. But yeah, I get what you're saying. A lot of folks I get that mentality. I once had that mentality, that no one understands what the fuck I'm going through. And if you keep that mentality, you're going to stay in the same exact spot that you're in, that no one understands me. There's millions of people. Why do you think a book that I self-published, you know, is doing so well with a story that's so fucked up? People like, I'll never forget when I went to a publishing house, like, who's going to resonate with this story? No one's going to buy this book. I'm like, are you not in the world? Are you not in society? You're never alone. Everybody's going through shit. So when people get this mentality of like, you don't understand me, you can throw a fucking rock to someone that can understand you if they're willing to break themselves down and stop hiding. A lot of people understand you, but you got to stop hiding. And that's why I tell people, a lot of people are going through shit. They just hide better than you did. That's all they did. They're just hiding better. But how do you push yourself when pain is all you feel with every step? When agony is the feedback loop that permeates each cell in your body, begging you to stop? That's tricky because the threshold for suffering is different for everybody. What's universal is the impulse to succumb, to feel like you've given everything you can and that you are justified in leaving a job undone. By now, I'm sure you can tell that it doesn't take much for me to become obsessed. Some criticize my level of passion, but I'm not down with the prevailing mentalities that tend to dominate American society these days. The ones that tell us to go with the flow or invite us to learn how to get more with less effort. Fuck that shortcut bullshit. The reason I embrace my own obsessions and demand and desire more of myself is because I've learned that it's only when I push beyond pain and suffering, past my perceived limitations, that I'm capable of accomplishing more, physically and mentally in endurance races, but also in life as a whole. And I believe the same is true for you. The human body is like a stock car. We may look different on the outside, but under the hood, we all have huge reservoirs of potential and a governor impeding us from reaching our maximum velocity. In a car, the governor limits the flow of fuel and air so it doesn't burn too hot, which places a ceiling on performance. It's a hardware issue. The governor can easily be removed, and if you disable yours, watch your car rocket beyond 130 miles per hour. It's a subtler process. In the human animal, our governor is buried deep in our minds, intertwined with our very identity. It knows what and who we love and hate. It's read our whole life story and forms the way we see ourselves and how we like to be seen. It's the software that delivers personalized feedback in the form of pain and exhaustion, but also fear and insecurity. And it uses all that to encourage us to stop before we risk it all. But here's the thing, it doesn't have absolute control. Unlike the governor in an engine, ours can't stop us unless we buy into its bullshit and agree to quit. Sadly, most of us give up when we've only given around 40% of our maximum effort. Even when we feel like we've reached our absolute limit, we still have 60% more to give. That's the governor in action. Once you know that to be true, it's simply a matter of stretching your pain tolerance, letting go of your identity and all your self-limiting stories so you can get to 60%, then 80% and beyond without giving up. I call this the 40% rule. And the reason it's so powerful is that if you follow it, you will unlock your mind to new levels of performance and excellence in sports and in life. And your rewards will run far deeper than mere material success. The 40% rule can be applied to everything we do. Because in life, almost nothing will turn out exactly as we hope. There are always challenges, and whether we are at work or school or feeling tested within our most intimate or important relationships, we will all be tempted to walk away from commitments, give up on our goals and dreams, and sell our own happiness short at some point. Because we will feel empty, like we have no more to give, when we haven't tapped even half of the treasure buried deep in our minds, hearts, and souls. I know how it feels to be approaching an energetic dead end. I've been there too many times to count. I understand the temptation to sell short, but I also know that impulse is driven by your mind's desire for comfort, and it's not telling you the truth. It's your identity trying to find sanctuary, not help you grow. It's looking for status quo, not reaching for greatness or seeking wholeness. But the software update that you need to shut your governor down is no supersonic download. It takes 20 years to gain 20 years of experience. And the only way to move beyond your 40% is to callous your mind day after day, which means you'll have to chase pain like it's your damn job. Imagine you're a boxer, and on your first day in the ring, you take one on your chin. It's gonna hurt like fucking hell. But at year 10 of being a boxer, you won't be stopped by one punch. You'll be able to absorb 12 rounds of getting beat the fuck down and come back the very next day and fight again. It's not that the punches lost power. Your opponents will be even stronger. The change has happened within your brain. You've calloused your mind. Over a period of time, your tolerance for mental and physical suffering will have expanded because your software will have learned that you can take a hell of a lot more than one punch. And if you stay with any task that is trying to beat you down, you will reap rewards. Not a fighter? Say you like to run but have a broken pinky toe. I'll bet if you continue running on it, pretty soon you'll be able to run on broken legs. Sounds impossible, right? I know it's true, because I've run on broken legs, and that knowledge helped me endure all manner of agonies on the ultra circuit, which has revealed a clear spring of self-confidence that I drink from whenever my tank is dry. But nobody taps their reserve 60% right away, or all at once. The first step is to remember that your initial blast of pain and fatigue is your governor talking. Once you do that, you are in control of the dialogue in your mind, and you can remind yourself that you are not as drained as you think, that you haven't given it your all, not even close. Buying into that will keep you in the fight, and that's worth extra 5%. Of course, that's easier read than done. It wasn't easy to begin the fourth lap of the Hurt 100 because I knew how much it would hurt. And when you are feeling dead and buried, dehydrated, wrung out, and torn the fuck up at 40%, finding that extra 60% feels impossible. I didn't want my suffering to continue. Nobody does. That's why the line fatigue makes cowards of us all. It's true as shit. Mind you, I didn't know anything about the 40% rule that day. The Hurt 100 is when I first started to contemplate it, but I had hit the wall many times before, and I had learned to stay present and open-minded enough to recalibrate my goals, even at my lowest. I knew that staying in the fight is always the hardest and most rewarding first step. Of course, it's easy to be open-minded when you leave yoga class and are taking a stroll by the beach, but when you're suffering, keeping an open mind is hard work. The same is true if you are facing a daunting challenge on the job or at school. Maybe you are tackling a 100-question test and know that you've bricked the first 50. At that point, it's extremely difficult to maintain the necessary discipline to force yourself to keep taking the test seriously. It's also imperative that you find it, because in every failure, there is something to be gained, even if it's only practice for the next test you'll have to take. Because that next test is coming. That's a guarantee. I didn't start my fourth lap with any sort of conviction. I was in wait and see mode, and halfway up that first climb, I became so dizzy, I had to sit under a tree for a while. 2 runners passed me, one at a time. They checked in, but I waved them on, told them I was just fine. Yeah, I was doing great. It was a regular Akos Konya. From my vantage point, I could see the crest of the hill above and encouraged myself to walk at least that far. If I still wanted to quit after that, I told myself that I would be willing to sign off and that there is no shame in not finishing the Hurt 100. I said that to myself again and again because that's how our governor works. It massages your ego, even as it stops you short of your goals. But once I got to the top of the climb, the higher ground gave me a new perspective, and I saw another place off in the distance and decided to cover that small stretch of mud, rock, and root too, before quitting for good. Once I got there, I was staring down a long descent, and even though the footing was troubling, it still looked much easier than going uphill. Without realizing it, I'd gotten to a point where I was able to strategize. On the first climb, I was so dizzy and weak, I was swept into a moment of fuck, which clogged my brain. There was no room for strategy. I just wanted to quit, but by moving a little bit further, I'd reset my brain. I'd calm down and realize I could chunk the race down to size. And staying in the game like that gave me hope, and hope is addictive. I chunked the race out that way, collecting 5% chips, unlocking more energy, then burning up as time blurred into the wee hours. I became so tired I damn near fell asleep on my feet. And that's dangerous on a trail with so many switchbacks and drop-offs. Any runner could have easily sleepwalked into oblivion. The one thing keeping me awake was the piss-poor trail condition. I fell on my ass dozens of times. My street shoes were out of their element. It felt like I was running on ice, and the inevitable fall was always jarring, but at least it woke me up. By running a little while, then walking the stretch, I was able to forge ahead to mile 77, the toughest descent of them all, which is when I saw Carl Meltzer, the speed goat, crest the hill behind me. He wore a lamp on his head and another on his wrist and a hip pack with 2 big water bottles. Silhouetted in pink dawn light, he charged down slope, navigating a section that had me stumbling and groping for tree branches to stay upright. He was about to lap me. 3 miles from the finish line, on pace for a course record 22 hours and 16 minutes. But what I remember most is how graceful he looked running at an incredible 6:30 per mile pace. He was levitating over the mud, riding a whole different zen. His feet barely touched the ground, and it was a beautiful fucking sight. The speed goat was the living, breathing answer to the question that colonized my mind after the Las Vegas Marathon. What am I capable of? Watching that bad man glide across the most challenging terrain made me realize that there is a whole other level of athlete out there in the world, and that some of that was inside me too. In fact, it's in all of us. I'm not saying that genetics don't play a role in athletic performance, or that everyone has an undiscovered ability to run a 4-minute mile, dunk like LeBron James, shoot like Steph Curry, or run the Hurt 100 in 22 hours. We don't all have the same floor or ceiling, but we each have a lot more in us than we know. And when it comes to endurance sports like ultra running, everyone can achieve feats they once thought impossible. In order to do that, we must change our minds, be willing to scrap our identity, and make the extra effort to always find more in order to become more. We must remove our governor. That day on the Hurt 100 circuit, after seeing Meltzer run like a superhero, I finished my 4th lap in all kinds of pain and took time to watch him celebrate, surrounded by his team. He just achieved something nobody had ever done before, and here I was with another full lap to go. My legs were rubber, my feet swollen. I did not want to go on, but I also knew that was my pain talking. My true potential was still undetermined. Looking back, I'd say I'd given 60%, which meant my tank was just shy of half full. I'd like to sit here and tell you I went all out and drained that fucker on lap 5, but I was still a mere tourist on Planet Ultra. I wasn't the master of my mind. I was in the laboratory, still in discovery mode, and I walked every single step of my 5th and final lap. It took me 8 hours, but the rain had stopped. The tropical glow of the warm Hawaiian sun felt phenomenal, and I got the job done. I finished Hurt 100 in 33 hours and 23 minutes, just shy of the 36-hour cutoff, good enough for 9th place. Only 23 athletes finished the entire race, and I was one of them. I was so thrashed afterward. 2 people carried me to the car, and Kay had to spin me up to my room in a damn wheelchair. When we got there, we had more work to do. I wanted to get my Badwater application done ASAP. So without so much as a cat nap, we polished that shit up. Within a matter of days, Cosman emailed me to let me know that I had been accepted into Badwater. It was a great feeling. It also meant that for the next 6 months, I had 2 full-time jobs. I was a Navy SEAL in full preparation mode for Badwater. This time, I would get strategic and specific because I knew that in order to unleash my best performance, if I wanted to blow past 40%, drain my tank, and tap my full potential, I had to first give myself an opportunity. I didn't research or prepare for the Hurt 100 well enough. I hadn't anticipated the rough terrain. I had no support crew for the first part of the race, and I had no backup water source. I didn't bring 2 headlamps, which would have helped during the long, bleak night, and though I sure felt like I had given everything I had, I never even had a chance to access my true 100%. Badwater was going to be different. I researched day and night. I studied the course, noted temperature and elevation variances, and charted them out. I wasn't just interested in the air temperature. I drilled down deeper so I knew how hot the pavement would be on the hottest Death Valley day ever. I Googled videos of the race and watched them for hours. I read blogs from runners who completed it, noted their pitfalls and training techniques. I drove north to Death Valley and explored the entire course. Seeing the terrain up close revealed its brutality. The first 42 miles were dead flat, a run through God's blast furnace cranked up high. That would be my best opportunity to make great time, but to survive it, I'd need 2 crew vehicles to leapfrog one another and set up cooling stations every third of a mile. The thought of it thrilled me, but then again, I wasn't living it yet. I was listening to music, windows down on a spring day in a blooming desert. I was comfortable as hell. It was all still a fucked up fantasy. I marked off the best spots to set up my cooling stations. I noted wherever the shoulder was wide and where stopping would have to be avoided. I also took note of gas stations and other places to fill up on water and buy ice. There weren't many of them, but they were all mapped. After running the desert gauntlet, I'd earned some relief from the heat and pay for it with altitude. The next stage of the race was an 18-mile climb to Town Pass at 4,800 feet. The sun would be setting by then, and after driving that section, I pulled over, closed my eyes, and visualized it all. Research is one part of preparation, visualization is another. Following that Town Pass climb, I would face a bone-crushing 9-mile descent. I could see it unfurl from the top of the pass. One thing I learned from the Hurt 100 is that running downhill fucks you up bad. And this time, I'd be doing it on asphalt. I closed my eyes, opened my mind, and tried to feel the pain in my quads and calves, knees, and shins. I knew my quads would bear the brunt of that descent, so I made a note to add muscle. My thighs would need to be plated in steel. The 18-mile climb up Darwin Pass from mile 72 would be pure hell. I'd have to walk that section, but the sun would be down. I'd welcome the chill in Lone Pine, and from there I could make up some time because that's where the road flattened out again before the final 13-mile climb up Whitney Portal Road to the finish line at 8,374 feet. And again, it's easy to write make up time in your notepad and another to execute it when you get there in real life, but at least I had notes. Together with my annotated maps, they made up my Badwater file, which I studied like I was preparing for another SVAP test. I sat at my kitchen table, read and reread them, and visualized each mile the best I could, but I also knew my body still hadn't recovered from Hawaii, which hampered the other, even more important aspect of my Badwater prep, physical training. I was in dire need of PT, but my tendons still hurt so bad I couldn't run for months. Pages were flying off the calendar. I needed to get harder and become the strongest runner possible, and the fact that I couldn't train like I'd hoped sapped my confidence. Plus, word had gotten out at work about what I was getting myself into. And while I had some support from fellow SEALs, I got my share of negativity too, especially when they found out I still couldn't run. But that was nothing new. Who hasn't dreamed up a possibility for themselves only to have friends, colleagues, or family shit all over it? Most of us are motivated as hell to do anything to pursue our dreams until those around us remind us of the danger, the downside, our own limitations, and all the people before us that didn't make it. Sometimes the advice comes from a well-intentioned place. They really believe they are doing it for our own good. But if you let them, these same people will talk you out of your dreams, and your governor will help them do it. That's one reason I invented the cookie jar. We must create a system that constantly reminds us who the fuck we are when we are at our best. Because life is not going to pick us up when we fall. There will be forks in the road, knives in your fucking back, mountains to climb, and we are only capable of living up to the image we create for ourselves.